Hey everyone, Pastor George here with our Thursday mailbag, and today I have a physical one that was handed to me on this pink note card here. So let me read this for all of you. It says Luke 17 verses 7 through 10. It seems like Jesus was mean to the poor servant. Is there a deeper meaning to this story? So let me read for you what Luke 17 verses 7 through 10 is real quick, and then I'll talk about it. So Luke 17, 7 through 10 is Jesus speaking to his disciples. He says, "Will any one of you who has a servant plowing or keeping sheep say to him when he has come in from the field, 'Come at once and recline at table'? Will he not rather say to him, 'Prepare supper for me and dress properly and serve me while I eat and drink, and afterward you will eat and drink'? Does he thank the servant because he did what was commanded? So you also, when you have done all that you were commanded, say, 'We are unworthy servants. We have only done what was our duty.'" So Jesus is speaking to his disciples here, and he uses, uh, the metaphor, or it's not really a parable because it doesn't really fit that, but this idea of kind of like saying to people, hey, which of you as a master, right, of a servant or as a slave or as a bond servant, whatever you want to say. At the time it would have been a slave, but maybe a hired hand, possibly, is what Jesus has in mind, but probably a slave. So just with that image, I think it adds more to it. And sitting there and saying, once you're done working, come in here and recline at the table, sit right next to me, right? Sit on my left hand and we'll eat together, right? No, like that's not what happened in these cultures, right? Once the person who was working that was done, you would say, "Oh no, come over in here now and serve me dinner," right? They don't get a moment of rest; they go right to the next thing. And then does the master thank the servant for doing what he was commanded? Jesus doesn't answer, but of course the answer is no, right? You don't do something that someone expects you. You don't thank someone for something that is expected. Now, what Jesus isn't teaching here is that we're supposed to be rude, right? Or that even this is supposed to be the ideal relationship between someone like a master and a slave, or a master and a servant, or something like that, right? Now, what he's getting at here is he's getting at the relationship between us and God, right? That's what he's not here giving us lessons on how to treat people who work for us, right? That's not what Jesus's point here is. He's saying, like, this is such a normal way that we act, right? And that we think that this is something that we just understand is owed to a master, right? It's kind of like thanking an employer for paying your paycheck, right? It's expected that they pay your paycheck, and so why would you thank them for it, right? And Jesus is getting at here is it all hinges at verse 10, when it says, "So when you have done all that you were commanded, say, 'We are unworthy servants. We have only done what was our duty.'" And this is a big theme for Jesus's ministry, and this idea that God doesn't owe you anything. You might be sick of hearing me say that, but I really think it's important because we live in a time and a place where we believe we are owed things, and from a religious perspective, a lot of us do believe that we're owed something from God, right? That God owes us certain things, and that if we scratch His back, He scratches ours, type of deal. But really, we do what we're commanded because we're His servants or slaves, right? That's what Paul calls himself. He calls himself a slave of Jesus Christ, right? We do these things because we know. Kind of what we're going to talk about on Sunday this week, that there is only one person to who we can go for answers like this, right? Or who's going to give us what we need, and that's Jesus. And it doesn't mean that he sees us as less than, but he's just trying to get across this point to his disciples that uh, they aren't owed these things. This is something that they do, and they do it gladly. And they don't see themselves as great. And if you want to see the same idea repeated again, you just have to go a chapter later, into chapter 18, and you have the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector, where the Pharisee is there's two guys in the temple and they're both praying, and the Pharisee says, "Oh, I'm so glad that you didn't make me like that tax collector standing far off. He's evil. He doesn't do anything that's right, but I'm a good and faithful servant," right? But all the tax collector says is, "God be merciful to me, a sinner." And then Jesus says, I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but to those who humble themselves, they will be exalted. So I think you get the same idea there, right? This idea here that you're not greater or better than you are, that you're a servant of Jesus, or you're a servant of God, and that is what your role is. And so you don't expect thanksgivings, right? You don't expect God to just give you things for doing normal everyday duties that are required of you, or expected of you. So that's what Jesus is getting at here. So I think that hopefully that answers your questions about there being a deeper meaning and what Jesus is talking about with the servant. So, yeah, good question. I hope to see you all on Sunday. It's going to be a good lesson this week. I'm excited to give it, and I will see you all next Tuesday for our Theolog. So you all have a wonderful rest of your Thursday and a wonderful weekend. Peace out.